You're listening to the Unsung podcast, where we talk about albums that we think are unsung classics, and then you guys tell us if you're right or wrong. This is the Unsung podcast.
Of the Black Metal Unsung podcast. I am your host, Mark Fraser. And I'm joined by my two undead comrades.
Comrades is a distinctly left-wing phrase there.
Anti-fascist black metal, mate.
Anti-fascist black metal, mate.
Anti-fascist black metal.
It's fucking 2019, innit?
God, how did they do that for so fucking long?
I have no idea.
Satan.
It is Satan. Channel Satan.
The power of eternal Satan compels you.
You've got a good voice when you go low.
Yeah, you
He's
do.
doing black metal for a man.
You've got a good rumble.
You should be doing some Nick Cave.
Oh,
There you go. There you go, girls.
Loosening pants everywhere.
So this is part 2 of the Black Metal Mixtape. Part 1.
I'm just thinking I'm going to go home and listen to Mark speaking like that.
I would love that.
Sitting on the speaker. Whoa.
Do some ASMR
Go on,
shit
Mark.
through a subwoofer.
Go on, Mark. Tell me more about fucking pop punk.
Last week we got Holier Than Thou on you to reinforce our left-wing liberal la-di-da credentials.
Disclaimer episode.
Yeah. we don't agree with any of this. We are purely in it for the aesthetic.
Yeah, we were trying to.
Yeah.
I don't know, caveats all around, but we hope you got through last week. Hope it was informative and enjoyable. We tried to not make it too much of a dirge.
I've also just opened up my Dave Grohl Nexus.
This laptop started to melt.
I've got crashed.
This is the most tabs I've ever had open, actually, so I hope you guys are excited by that.
So 3 records then, guys.
Okay, so we have finally got to the point where we have each taken a black metal record.
Yes,
and we're going to put it forward to the public vote, and you will choose one of them
So
to
I think
go into the discography.
I think what we should do is just put our cards on the table and then shift to a Nexus very quickly.
Yeah, let's do the Nexus to break it up a little, because my Nexus is fucking amazing.
Really?
But let's say
Let's do the records first.
Let's say the
See who
records.
the records are. Yeah.
So I'll go first. Chronologically speaking, I'm going for the 2001 record Thorns by Thorns. So I'm going for a true black metal
True cult, yeah.
artist. He's one of the original members of the Inner Circle.
He's a naughty boy.
He's a naughty boy.
He's a very naughty boy.
He's legit, Christopher. He's legit.
He's
Yes, he is true
but
cult,
he's
man.
also got an excuse, so that's truly ideal.
He was dropped in his head.
So yeah, that's my record that I'll be putting forward. Mark? Oh no, Chris.
Right.
Chronologically, of course.
Right. So it took me a little bit of try to choose, but after
Don't try and justify the fact
Just
you're
say
picking
it.
that.
Just
Yeah,
say what album.
I was close to going for Menace Ruins, that Canadian band, but I've gone for Taka. Taake, and
Also true black metal. I mean, a little later,
1993 Bergen true black metal, legit. And the album Norges Vapen,
Which is Norway's weapon.
Thanks
It's
for
from
looking it up.
2011.
I didn't look that up, but Norway's weapon, and he is a bit of a weapon. And he's from 2000, it's from 2011. Fucking rules.
And
Mark.
I went for a not black metal record.
Oh, just say it.
Went for Sunbather by Death.
It had to be done. It had to be done.
You know, there had to be a point where we're going to do
But
it.
we had to come at it from the completely different perspective, from the American hipster,
Oh my
slagged
God.
off the
And
fuck
man,
perspective.
I felt so
I listened
vindicated
to-
when Mark told us this. I was like, that's great, Mark.
I listened to it right after the Taka record, and it's not out of place, man. It's really not.
And we'll discuss it later. But first, let's
really
just do
not.
our. I'm really happy that we've got like early true black metal, we've got medium true black metal, and then we've got hipster black metal.
I'm just delighted that Mark didn't waste any of his week trying to think of an album and just went from the most.
No,
I listened to a lot of stuff.
because it's one of the records I would have chosen if not what I've chosen.
I
So
know. I was
You're
just.
just
I
trying to
was
wind
pleased.
I listened to a lot of stuff, but you know, this is the one that got me into the kind of crusty stuff as well. But we'll talk about that.
anyway, so the Nexus. Oh, I wish we had a black metal Nexus.
Ah, Fritz, where are you when we need you?
I know.
But we'll a bit of light relief will do us no harm. So Fritz,
It's the Unsung podcast. Dave Grohl Nexus need to find a way to connect the show to that guy. From playing in Nirvana to hanging with Obama, he knows lots of folk, so stands to reason we'll find a link. It's the Unsung podcast. Dave Grohl Nexus. Don't take too long. All right, you guys ready? Are you ready? Here we go.
all right, David, you went first. So
Shall I start?
I think you should go first because you are clearly brimming with
Are
pride.
you prepared? So Thorns 2001. It was produced by Mike Hartung, who's quite a well-known Scandinavian
Big Mike.
engineer producer. He's done a lot of work. He's done a lot of work with like
He's just done a lot of work.
stuff. One of the artists he worked with a long
Tesco.
time ago was a Mr. Dweezil Zappa,
Oh, wow.
son of Frank, one of the two touring tours of Frank Zappa
Not
music,
Minion
the
It.
legit one.
You know that
so-
he's got a child called Minion.
Yeah.
Yep. Dweezil Zappa, of course, a talented musician though he is, will be remembered for appearing in Arnold Schwarzenegger's The Running Man.
I knew you were going to say that. Oh, yeah.
I didn't know this.
you know who else in
yeah,
that film?
he was Stevie. Don't touch that dial.
And do you know
he
who else is in it? Mick
Oh,
Fleetwood.
work! Fuck off! Well, obviously, that's going to be my next connection, isn't it?
Is it?
You're peeking all over the place, mate. You're getting too
Fuck's
excited.
sake, I know. So, also in The Running Man was a Mr. Mick Fleetwood from.
Really? I've never heard that.
What
What the fuck was he in the running, man?
He was the leader of the resistance.
Yeah, he was like the old leader. He was called
Huzzah!
Mick.
Oh wow! I
Funnily
can
enough.
totally picture him as well.
So Mick Fleetwood.
Why the fuck was that?
Why?
He's done quite
Just
a lot.
'cause it was
hasn't
the
he?
80s, mate.
Fleetwood.
Cocaine.
Who directed that film?
Was it John McTiernan?
No, it wasn't. It was
Wasn't Schumacher?
boo, boo, boo.
Was it Paul Verhoeven?
Paul
No.
Glaser.
Paul Glaser. Oh.
Ah, okay.
So, anyway, so Mick Fleetwood, obviously Fleetwood Mac, blah blah blah,
Yeah.
loads of connections. I'm going to go with an early sort of London connection. He joined a new band called the Peter Bees.
Crap name.
Yeah, with Peter Bardens, a keyboard player, and soon expanded that band to become Shotgun Express,
Crap name.
which included a certain Rod Stewart.
Good name.
So Rod Stewart, I mean,
I mean,
Where do you go from Rod Stewart?
the only good immigrant is Rod Stewart, as Barney Gumbo once said.
So Rod Stewart, a famous supporter of Glasgow Celtic Football Club.
Hail, hail.
Even though his father was a Hibernian supporter. Glasgow Celtic Football Club, I don't know if you know, employed the first ever black player to play in Scotland. Did you know that?
Paul Elliott?
No, his name was Gil Heron, and he was the father of Gil Scott
Heron.
fucking Heron.
That's wild.
That's fucking nuts.
So Gil St. Elmo
This is
Heron,
a good nexus.
was born in Jamaica, and then
St. Elmo Heron.
yeah, came over in the 50s. He'd played for Chicago, and then came over in the 50s, played for Celtic, and then the now defunct Third Lanark. And he was the first black person to play football for a Scottish team.
But more importantly, his middle name was St. Elmo.
St. Elmo.
Can I just say, Third Lanark are not defunct.
Are they not? Do they still
They are,
exist?
they're an amateur team, and I made a joke about them on Twitter once, and they actually tweeted me back.
Oh,
Dave, brace yourself. It's going to be all True Cult and Third Lanark.
so Gil Scott Heron, obviously Mr. Heron's most famous offspring. Gil Scott Heron.
What was his middle name?
Scott.
Oh yeah, of course.
An American soul and jazz poet, incredible writer, had a lot of sort of issues with his personal life towards the end of his life. My pal Alex, actually, it turned out that he went to see him in Aberdeen in 2010, saw him in fucking Moshulu or something like that.
Fucking
Or
hell.
maybe it was like 2005, I don't know, but it was like, fuck, I didn't realise somebody of my age or younger could have seen Gil Scott Heron. That's amazing. But anyway, Gil Scott Heron, famously sampled by Kanye West in Who Will Survive in America on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy.
Well, sampled by whoever did the sampling for
Well, yeah,
Kanye
of
West
course.
before he stole it.
My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is probably Kanye West's best record, and released on Def Jam. Def Jam, of course, is the record label that was put together and founded by Russell Simmons and a Mr. Rick Rubin. Rick Rubin. Where'd I go from there? How did I get to
so
Dave
many.
Grohl? Rick Rubin was credited as producer on Mr. Hanky the Christmas Poo
Really?
from the South Park television program and
Wow.
soundtrack. Now, in the South Park movie, George Clooney played the
dog?
doctor. He was the doctor that replaced Kenny's heart with a baked potato.
Oh, really? He played the dog in the original
But he
series.
also played the dog in the original season, but he didn't actually say anything, I don't think.
Just went
But he
with-
actually had a speaking part in the movie where he did the baked potato. George Clooney, I think what you'll see here, as I then finish off, is Dave Grohl appearing with P. Diddy at George Clooney's Casamigos Halloween party in Beverly Hills, dressed as Alice Cooper. So
That's disgusting.
there you are. I finish on a
Such
Dave
a
Grohl
fucking
wank fest with George
scenester,
Clooney.
LA Hollywood motherfucker. Like fucking Kurt Cobain hitting 20,000 hertz right now in his grave.
But that was my pretty solid.
That was a good one. The
Nexus.
Running Man thing was enough, and then you hit us with the Gil Scott Heron thing. That was amazing.
And then Mr. Hanky and the Christmas Poo.
Yeah, well.
All right, Christopher.
Okay. Mine turned out pretty good as well. Taka, or the guy Taka, is the host, features a musician called Attila Ksihar.
Yep.
Attila Ksihar, who was the vocalist in Mayhem.
On Die Mysterious Dos Satanas.
And Mayhem featured Hellhammer on the old drums.
And murder.
And
pro murder.
Endorsing the murder of gay men. Hellhammer played on the album Inception by an American band called Eyes of Noctum. Do you know this band, David?
No, not really.
Eyes of Noctum features a Mr. Weston Cage, son of Nicholas.
Oh.
Hello.
Wow.
Here we go.
Hello there.
So Weston Cage son of Nicholas Cage, aka Nicholas Kim Coppola.
Mm-hmm.
Nicholas Kim Coppola is the nephew of a Mr. Francis Ford Coppola.
Mm-hmm.
Francis Ford Coppola directed the old Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
Dracula featured a Mr. Vampires.
Just I got excited because I mean you could have just gone Varg Vikernes was a vampire.
Yeah. Dracula featured the old Keanu Reeves.
Mm-hmm.
Keanu Reeves was a member of the band Dogstar.
Yep.
Everyone knows that a man ain't supposed to cry. But listen, I got to cry because crying.
Pretty solid.
The band Dogstar toured supporting David Bowie in 1994.
Gosh.
David Bowie played his first ever US show in 1972 in Cleveland, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Also in Ohio was the birthplace of Mr. Dave Grohl, the town of Warren, Ohio, in which there is a street called Dave Grohl Alley.
Goodness.
I give you the floor, Mark.
Well, there you are.
Well done. Mine's is not as interesting as you guys.
We got this back to front.
But so all of Death Heaven's records have been engineered, produced by a guy called Jack Shirley. He also produced a record by a band called Broadway Calls.
Broadway Calls?
Yeah, Broadway Calls.
These are Bloodway Calls.
And Broadway Calls are a punk band on Side One Dummy Records. Their second album, Good Views, Bad News, was recorded at the Blasting Room Studios in Colorado by Jason Livermore and, of course, Mr. Bill Stevenson, the man who played drums for Black Flag throughout the entirety of the 80s. Black Flag's released records on SST Records, owned by Greg Ginn, the guitarist of Black Flag. And Soundgarden released some records on SST Records. At least one record on SST Records. Yeah, and that's how you get to Dave Grohl.
Oh, that's it.
Good work.
Fuck it. Do the rest yourself, guys.
You can. Well, I mean, if you want me to go down the most obvious route, it would be that Dave Grohl recently played at the Chris Cornell tribute show, like weeks ago. So
that's the good link. That's a good link. All right, cool. Well, bit of an anticlimax, but
What do you expect?
What did you have to work with Dave?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Play us out,
more
Fritz.
Fritz.
You guys ready? Are you ready? Here we go.
Okay, so
Are we doing it in chronological order again?
just do it in the same order.
So Thorns is the project of Mr. Snorre Ruch. He was there, guys.
Snorri.
He was
Snorri,
there.
the little fucking dwarf.
So Snorri was the man who drove Varg to the flat of Oystein Arsith, Euronymous, and he stayed in the car for a little bit, and then he waited, and then came back out and drove him home.
No, apparently Snorri ran out the house when things kicked off and got really upset, and then he drove Varg back.
So he was imprisoned. He was put in the jail for accessory for murder. He maintains his innocence, says he just gave his pal a lift. So he was an original member of the whole crew. He was part of Mayhem.
Was he in Mayhem, or was he just a hanger on?
There were riffs that he wrote that got used by Mayhem.
A couple of them are on Dubs Tennis, right?
Yeah. So basically, he in the early 90s, he had a demo that he passed around basically all these guys that was highly influential.
I heard about this.
Grimork, and it was basically just guitar and bass. There was no drums or anything. But you listen to it now and you can hear bands that have like taken little parts of it, and then you can hear his progression as well. And I think he was just extremely influential in terms of sound and aesthetic for the whole black metal scene. He, even on that first record, which is just home recorded, no drums. There's like synthy sort of effects layers on there that are way more progressive than anything else that was happening at the time. Gives it a sort of really eerie sort of sound. And then riffs that would then come to sort of define the whole
it's interesting
genre.
how much they informed each other. There was, like, you know, I really detest that scene at that time, but oh my goodness, it's really interesting how much cross-pollination there was between all the different people. Like people like you write lyrics for us. Oh, here's a riff. Yeah, you can have that riff. There's a lot of collaboration between the people within that scene.
He then had trve, which is a slightly more polished EP demo, which had drums and stuff
under
on it.
What name was that under though?
So this was all under Thorns.
He calls himself Blackthorn in Thorns, right?
Yeah, he did originally. Yeah. But I mean, it's always sort of been his project. I think originally your man Faust was the drummer for a year in 1991, but then I think they were all just members of each other's bands, basically.
I'm pretty sure Faust has written the lyrics to some of their songs post
the early
murder
stuff.
Yeah. No,
I think not on this record. Thorns have only got one record, which is the one I'm going to talk about. But you can hear on trve that there's sort of clean guitars in there as well, but the use of dynamics is totally fucking evil, basically. And you can hear that he's the same writer that 10 years later would come back with a fully produced record. And anyway, he went to jail, came out, and he'd sort of been the one that never produced a record. And then in 2001, he came back and he worked with
the black metal sheep of the family.
Yes, we worked with Satire from Satyricon, and he worked with Hellhammer, and this album came out in 2001.
Is it Hellhammer that plays drums in this?
Yeah. So it came out the same year as a few big black metal albums. We talked about Dimmu Borgir, Puritanical, Euphoric Misanthropia. It came out as same time as Codex Necro by Anath Nathrak, came out as same time as Prometheus by Emperor, which was given 5Ks, and Kerrang! Album of the Week. It was Terrorizer Album of the Month. Pitchfork gave it this sort of post thing. But Thorns in 2001, it came second in the Terrorizer Albums of the Year poll. That was ahead of Lateralis, of Opeth, Neurosis, and only just behind Jane Doe. But it's sort of forgotten about. It's just this weird standalone record. It's the only thing he's ever released apart from a split he did with Emperor a couple of years earlier.
Isn't it kind of sad, man, that these people had so much fucking talent and they were such dickheads?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what's another interesting and weird part of the whole thing.
As good as that album is, and like from what I've listened to, it's not a lot, not enough, but there must be so many people that, as I said, like guys even like Kurt, who are like, I mean, he would probably really fucking like that, but it's
you have to take it with a massive
off the table, because for some people, and I totally understand it, they're like, I'm not willing to make that distinction between the artist and the art. It's
I mean, I heard this album and I had no idea about any of the background of any of the musicians. I read the review in Terrorizer and I was like, that sounds fucking great, I'll get it. And
I don't think there's a right answer. I'm starting to appreciate that different people, some people can, some people can't make that distinction. But think how much bigger this guy's audience would be if he wasn't such a fucking awful person.
Yeah, exactly.
And therefore he was judged on his merits. But he's a dickhead. And so many of these people, as we said about Varg, he's so fucking talented. What a waste.
So I just find this album is really fucking interesting because it sounds like a guy that's been away from the scene for 10 years in fucking jail, obviously. But
well, it turns out the scene was probably in jail with him. So.
Yeah, it's a really interesting album. It doesn't sound dated at all. It's really well produced. It's progressive. It's, as we mentioned, it's sort of like got industrial influences.
It's quite sci-fi sounding as well.
Quite sci-fi sounding, yeah. There's quite a lot of sort of futuristic influences on it.
A bit dystopian feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Dystopian's a great word. It's like
if Vangelis did a black metal record.
Yeah. Like it's sort of like a Blade Runner goes black metal.
The production's pretty key in it as well. It was
absolutely. It's really high crisp, sharp, clinical.
Yeah,
so it's
definitely.
like the opposite of that Dark Throne, Mayhem, early like sort of fuzz sound.
Well, that's
It's
the thing.
like
If
so pure.
we spoke about him not doing anything for 10 years and then finally bringing this record out. If he hadn't gone to jail, if he'd brought it out earlier, it might well have sounded a little shit.
Yeah,
Probably would have done. Yeah,
it might have, been tied up with a lot of genre tropes or whatever.
Given what he was trying to do, the technology to execute it maybe wasn't at his disposal that decade earlier,
Because those synth sounds, I don't want to keep going on about that, but the synth sounds on this record don't sound like any other sounds any other black metal band uses at all on their records.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like on at the end of Underneath the Universe 2, it's got like really Stanley Kubrick type vibes to it. So like quickly go through it, kicks in with really brutal start, the drums and snare like so on point, and you're like,
Can I just check? There's 2 versions of this album, is that right?
Kind of, yeah.
well, yeah, the album that you can listen to on Spotify has 2 extra tracks
Right,
to the original released
One of them's
version.
pretty good though.
And yeah, I only heard that like for the first time like a year or 2 ago when I heard it on Spotify. I was like, track 9, TSOS, and it's actually fucking amazing. I was like, oh, this should have been on the original record.
Sorry to jump ahead. It's just in case people are listening to a different record than we're just
that's fine. I'll just quickly go through it, but yeah, a lot of people were really excited. Black metal purists or fans of the genre were like, oh, finally Snorri is releasing his record. It's been 10 years since we've heard anything from him.
Snorri the driving dwarf is releasing his album.
But he comes in straight away with Existence, and like this is a brutal start. This is a heavy band. They've got that sort of thin tremolo black metal stuff, but then it stops, and then it's actually a quote from The Matrix.
Yeah,
it comes in.
There's 2 quotes of The Matrix in this song.
It goes, Jesus, what a mind job.
Yeah.
That's so fucking Devin Townsend.
I know.
It's so early 2000s as well.
Yeah. But then like vocals come in, this sort of eerie synthy thing that's coming in, half beat but pummeling double kick. It just sounds really different to a lot of black metal. It's like stays within certain lines, but then in terms of time, in terms of tempo, but then in terms of the overall sound, it totally fucks with things. It's got huge sort of triumphant riffs. There's a lot of fade outs and fade ins on this album.
Yeah, it's weird when they do it. It's not something I was expecting in a lot of these albums. Yeah,
and I don't know, I like that. It sort of fucks with your dynamic expectation. And then like track 2, World Playground Deceit, is like really sort of clinical but evil, atonal machine gun riffing. And then something that a lot of black metal doesn't do, but he breaks down in a proper chug riff. Yeah. And you know how I fucking love a chug, Christopher.
Fucking hell, man. The Proud Boys don't approve, but you do.
Well, that's my fuck you to the right wing. Yeah. Shifting Channels, track 3 is really massive industrial riffs. Sound of robotics. It's got like some sort of sci-fi samples in there. That's when you really sort of get that dystopian vibe.
Can I ask objectively, and excuse me for breaking your flow, but how good a drummer do you think Hillhammer is?
He seems very tight as fuck, but I don't know how triggered he is.
Yeah, I think he's got one track, and that's his track. Playing that blast beat is his track.
Yeah, he can go very fast with his arm and his legs.
Yeah,
it's impressive, but I haven't heard enough of his stuff to know what else he can do.
I think I'd get bored of listening to him drum all the time, but I think on certain albums, it's fucking perfect.
There are some great sections of drumming on this record. Like in existence, the first song, the drumming's fucking mental in it.
Yeah, that's
really, really good.
The snare's so on point when that first track kicks in.
I think a lot of those snares, though, at this point, the production, they were using a lot of triggered samples.
Aye.
Because some people have criticised it for just the snare hits are too similar. There's too uniform. There's like I'd seen this criticism actually. A lot of people were like, oh, they use whether they use drum machines or whether they use, because I think some of the Brazilian bands were accused of using drum machines as well. The guy that had left Sepultura to form Sarcophago, I think they're called. They were there was like a rumour that they were using drum machines. I kind of think the drum machines and the samples thing works because
it totally does.
It's meant to be so dehumanized and cold that it gives it a more techie feel, a more kind of digital feel, but it also contributes to that chilling effect of the music. You know, the thing about like Death Crush, the first Mayhem record, is it's so analog and warm and dirty and human. Having that synthetic sample, it kind of takes a little bit of the human out of it again and makes it all the more chilling. So I'm not sure that it's a weakness.
I mean, I think a whole part of this record is that it sounds so clinical and evil and like post fucking dystopian fascist soundtrack.
It sounds like a machine playing it.
Yeah. Underneath the Universe. Oh well, no, actually, track 4, Stellar Master Elite. The Stellar Master Elite sounds like a fascistic space force.
Yeah, the space themes. It's like whenever anybody says, like black space metal or whatever, it's usually only the themes that are different. There's very rarely any kind of like tangible.
So this one fades in. It's got an absolute fucking beast of a riff. It's like a sort of battle call. And then the end has this anxious riff, but it's still really sort of heavy.
It's kind of the most straight up song on the record, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the one that you'd sort of you'd put on a mixtape, Chris.
For that special girl.
Yeah.
Or guy.
Then Underneath the Universe, part 1 is a sort of instrumental.
It's pure militaristic, isn't it?
Yeah. Really militaristic chug again. Dun, 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 dun. It sounds like Darth Vader.
It's weird because it's not something you'd associate with black metal.
Yeah, and then you've got like 4 minutes of darkness and space that comes in after that, sort of ambient.
See, I really like that about black metal. I think it's a real strength of the genre in that they do go into they embrace the power of minimalism with their ambient passages. I think I know a lot of it came from the kind of ghostly haunting Scandinavian setting, the nature thing, and this sounds more like it's a bit more futuristic, but they do understand the dynamic power of slowing somebody down, redefining their kind of parameters of what's going to be loud and then hitting them again, and they seem to capture that a lot better than some of the techier bands. For example, bands like Meshuggah, as much as I like Meshuggah, they don't always include enough pacing in that way, and I think the black metal guys seem to have clicked onto that pretty early.
Track 6, Slow Grinder again. Yeah, that's the one that fades out to this sort of organ theme using the rising synth chords that are really Kubrick-esque. Track 7, Interface to God, just another
good name.
Sort of fucking punishing
it's
heavy.
Like a machine gun at the start. It actually sounds like a machine gun.
really sort of jumpy riffs that are really sort of aggressive and theatrical as well. It's like it's like quite orchestral.
Yeah.
See the changeover at 1 minute 35, man, it's just totally evil.
Aye, yeah,
Absolutely
totally.
fucking evil, man.
And then Vortex finishes, so that would be the final track on the proper original release, and it's just like a sort of halftime death procession.
Yeah.
I mean, does it stray too much from black metal? I mean, I know it's got the pedigree of black metal, but sonically,
It depends how much I guess it would depend how much the listener likes the synth in their black metal. That seems like the logical extension of taking that desolate vibe that a lot of Scandinavian black metal was trying to go with, but then make it more futuristic.
Yeah.
So it really depends how much you like sticking to the original themes and the original, bass, drums, guitar lineup of it.
It seems like nobody's going to have the balls in that scene to question the legitimacy of it with guys like Hellhammer and Snorri involved in it. But musically, if it was somebody that was nothing...
I don't know, like, you can definitely see the ties. It has Satire from Satyricon doing a lot of the vocals on this record, and you can hear Satyricon after this are very influenced by this record. Like, you can really see the ties to it. It's definitely, I think it is black metal.
I think
Aesthetically as well, like visually, it's very, very not black metal.
It's futuristic, isn't it?
Yeah.
They don't have like weird wonky fonts.
That's
They've got a very futuristic font. It's got very interesting, like microscopic, beautiful, colourful image on the album cover.
See, I think there's a little hint of that with the one that I've picked. I think he's used the inclusion of other figureheads of the scene to cement its black metal credentials, even though musically it strays quite far from it sometimes. And I do wonder if maybe with Thorns musically, had it been some vegans from Washington State doing it, would the black metal community have embraced it so wholeheartedly? Is it relying on its credentials?
Yeah, but who cares what the black metal community thinks?
Exactly.
What matters is it sonically taking big cues from black metal? Yes. And does it sound evil as fuck? Yes. Is it a really cool fucking record? Yeah. TSOS is that track that I only just heard recently, which is like a bonus track. And it's fucking amazing. It's really atmospheric, sort of drony.
Yeah, it's an ambient song.
Song,
amazing,
but
yeah.
it's really fucking cool.
It's got like a chugging guitar part that comes in over the ambient soundscape, and it just sounds really fucking grim, really horrible and enclosing. And it's
nice when you get a bonus thing that actually feels
like it even adds to it.
It adds to it, yeah, rather than just some.
Yeah, and it's like it was part of the sessions that worked.
Yeah.
And then it finishes on Existence, which is the same name as the first track, and it's sort of like
it's like a reverse almost of it.
Yeah, reverse of it, samples or like visits familiar themes from either the first track and stuff like that. But like overall, it's a really well-rounded, straight to the point, clinical but entertaining record.
I think when you have that amount of time, that amount of being steeped in a scene, the thing you produce is going to have to be special.
Yeah.
You know, this guy was about for fucking ages and was in amongst it, was writing riffs for these people. He had something bubbling up that was going to...
Yeah, but then he was always the outsider as well.
Yeah.
So like literally he was outside when that thing happened. He was outside in the car, and then he was the outsider
allegedly
throughout the entire thing. So
there was a lot of build up, and there was a lot of expectation on what he was going to do, but it seems like something.
But he's never toured, he's never played live.
Just like so many of them.
Exactly, and this is a black metal record that a lot of people might not have heard.
You see him doing it fucking B&Q, getting his sheet metal.
Are the musicians involved problematic? For sure they fucking are.
Oh my god, so many problems.
He went electronic after this record, so he became Thorns Inc. and he's doing electronic stuff instead. So he's clearly, I think, if you spent so long in jail and you've maybe had these ideas kind of be in your head for a long time, it's also entirely possible that his music taste has probably was moving
moved on, but he
quite
had
a
to
lot,
get this
but he
out.
just had to do
He
this.
he knew he had this.
And he had the contacts to make it happen, so obviously he did.
It's literally one of my favourite album artworks. Like, the album cover is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Like, the font is so cool. Like, everything. Yeah.
Black metal fonts, man. How good are they?
I know. But this one isn't a black metal font. It's
There
like
was-
really futuristic.
Yeah.
and,
There's,
like,
I can't remember the guy's
modern.
name, but there's one guy who's famously the one that does the. Do you remember his name?
I can't remember his name, but I mean,
He does the black metal fonts for so many
Yeah.
people, and he does it for free. He
Yeah.
just like asks you to send you that you send
name
him
and he
your
just
band
draws
name,
it.
and he draws it, and that's it.
That's actually pretty cool.
But black metal fonts, the more illegible, the better.
some closing remarks from the YouTube community
On Thorns.
to support me.
Never read the comments.
Super underrated inner circle Norwegian black metal. It's a shame Thorns isn't more well known, because Fenriz even said that Snorre was a pioneer to the black metal sound. This is art of pure darkness, how black metal should sound like. Without Snorre, black metal would sound completely different. This is the man who created the guitar sound still used today. No one was playing anything like this before him. I had the phrase ravishing grimness in my head for some reason.
And name
I think ravishing grimness is like kind of perfect for this album because it's ravishingly grim. Anyway,
I mean, I can only
Next
imagine
up.
what a cesspit the YouTube comments are on a black metal post. And maybe it's not that bad. Maybe the music gets
for Thorns it was fine.
Yeah.
They were just like, oh, this sounds really evil, I like
It's
it.
just you fucking post up a video of Lena Dunham though, and it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
All right, so my turn. Tag and Norwegian Vapen, which you told me means Norway's
Always
weapon.
weapon, yeah.
He is indeed Norway's weapon, as we said.
So it's interesting that you chose this guy, Christopher.
Isn't it? So I think this guy's an interesting case study in a lot of things we've spoken about. So Taka, or Host. Host is basically a solo musician. He writes this by himself, gets a bunch of contributors in for the stuff, especially this album. Has a live band who are really pretty fucking good. My friend Rick, as I said, had met Host. He was apparently a very, very nice guy in person. That said, not averse to a bit of controversy, but to give a wee bit of backstory, he's from Bergen, and Bergen was really like the ground zero for black metal in the late 80s and early 90s, where Bergen apparently, as I think I mentioned in the first episode, apparently rains on average 275 days a year, and they joke that it just snows the rest of the time. He came up at the same time as that first Scandinavian wave, or the second wave of black metal. Taka was originally called Thule, which again, if you listen to the first episode, kind of relates to all of that neo-Volkish mythology and the sort of Aryan land of Thule and Ultima Thule and all that kind of stuff. He says that in his music he is, quote, looking to awaken national pride and cultural nostalgia. That's a very loaded term, and it can be taken quite innocently, because he's looking to awaken pride in Norway as a country that produces great music, and cultural nostalgia could be innocuous. Whilst also reminding people that hell is here on earth and people can be demons. On the flip of it, awakening national pride and cultural nostalgia has more than a few associations with some less than admirable moments in human history. Taka's first three albums, he took a hiatus, but his first three albums were good, but fairly standard black metal fare. There's one in particular that stands out. I can't remember the name of it. It starts with an N as well. Post hiatus, a fourth album that came out, which was a self-titled album, is a bit better, I think. It's pretty ferocious, if there's any word to sum it up, but again still adheres to the kind of black metal formula pretty closely. Norwegian Vapen is for me the Goldilocks period with this guy, this artist. He does something a bit different on it. It was actually, this album was nominated for a Spelman Music Award, which is kind of quite a prestigious music award in Norway, as the best metal of that year. On the album, he collaborates with all kinds of superstars of the black metal scene, which, as I said when Dave was discussing Thorns, I think is maybe it's organic and maybe it's partly to kind of cement its black metal credentials, because it does sonically do some stuff that's quite different. Attila Xehar, as I mentioned in the Nexus, was of Mayhem, and also did some Vox with Sun. Nocturno Culto Nocturnal Canto is also the other guy from Dark Throne, not Fenris. Demonaz is the guitarist and one of the founders of the band Immortal, and Ivar Bjornsson is one of the original members of Enslaved. So these are like inner black circle Scandinavian black metal royalty in this sense. And they contribute well. Their contributions are notable and distinct, and they don't seem tokenistic in the main. Taka's pretty notorious, as I mentioned, for a few incidents. The first was a kind of quite high profile event in Germany, in the city of Essen, where he went on stage with a swastika on his chest above an inverted cross. This was early on in their tour, and the remainder of the tour was immediately cancelled. This is, like, to date, probably the most viable criticism against it. However, with exceptions, some of his response I quite dug, not because I agree with it, but because of its sort of focus and consistency. His main point was, first of all, black metal, he felt, should avoid becoming a housebroken genre like so much other metal. I don't like this about black metal, but I do acknowledge it, that the whole point of it is about being unsettling, about being anti-establishment, about being genuinely unsettling, not like pantomime unsettling like so many metal bands like Iron Maiden, things like that, but about being, as we said at length in that first part of this podcast, about actually being threatening, about actually being problematic. He made the point that Christian blasphemy really doesn't elicit much in terms of shock value anymore. It's pretty pedestrian, and he went for the most charged symbol he could find. He said there was no political content to it. He said it was also, he felt appropriate in Germany to remind Germany of its greatest shame, and that was the phrase he used. He's made comments in other interviews, because clearly it's something he's asked about a lot, about how he was taking the piss with it, but he does cite, and I think fairly cites, the Sex Pistols and Susie Sue from Susie and the Banshees. One of my main beefs with the Sex Pistols, one of my main beefs with the first punk movement, was that use of the swastika so liberally, and they did, as well as Sieg Heilin, Johnny Rotten. There's photos of him throwing Sieg Heil. Of course, that was purely shock value, complete, abject, countercultural, nihilistic, puerile shock value. I don't agree with it. I don't like the use of it, but for the purposes stated, I completely understand it. I don't like it, and I've been very critical of them for doing that, and I'm critical for this guy for doing that, but I think it's consistent on that level. I think the context is slightly different because black metal is so associated with neo-fascism, that's the bit that bothers me, more so than it would if it was purely decontextualized and it's just a band being shocking. He follows that up by saying our concept was built on provocation. He says, I do realise that the act was unforgivable, but on the other hand, I feel that black metal bands should allow themselves to use any negative symbolism for maximum discomfort. As I said, he doesn't want them to become housebroken. My biggest problem with Taka, and the one that I had to sort of come to terms with, I'm not necessarily coming to terms with it, I don't like it, but I think it's poorly chosen. He said that the owner of the club, that he understood everybody's criticisms except for the owner of the club that cancelled the Essen show, who he referred to as an Untermensch. And Untermensch was a quite a loaded term that was used by the Nazis. It's been used by a lot of people because obviously it means like a kind of underling, but it also was used specifically by the Nazis to refer to Slavs, Jews and Roma as kind of lesser races. And I think that doesn't do his argument any favours as regards the use of the swastika for shock value. Other criticisms that he's faced, there was a lot of rhetoric around some of his lyrics on the song Orkan on this album, the second track. Lines like "To hell with Muhammad" and talking about the Muhammadists being inexcusable or something like that. His reply to that was, "We do not encourage violence, but paraphrasing here, but basically apply the same blasphemic standard to Islam as we do Christianity." I actually totally am fine with that. I think it's something that is very infuriating and slightly infantilizing, in that it is absolutely fine to commit acts of blasphemy against Christianity, and then when a musician who has consistently blasphemed against Christianity for fucking decades criticizes another major world religion as a religion, not criticizing
ethnicity or race,
but criticizing the religious belief, that's valid to me. I criticize religion. I have no time for Islam, Christianity, Judaism, any religion in that sense. I'm an atheist, and I think that part of it is valid. I realise the dynamic's slightly different when Muslims are a minority, but if you're criticising a religion as a religion, that's fair game to me. That bit doesn't bother me as much. But his 2018 US tour was cancelled because Antifa seized upon his comments as well as his history with the Essen incident and promised violent reprisals if Taka were allowed to perform. So that tour got pulled, and obviously he wasn't chuffed about that. But to be honest, you made your bed, you'll lie in it. If you want to be a provocateur, you're going to have to fucking deal with the consequences.
Yeah, and Neon's discussion might not be at the forefront of everybody's minds.
Yeah, I mean,
dealing with things.
You can't very well go and criticise Antifa for making sweeping statements when you're making sweeping statements for a living.
Yeah.
That said, it's a fucking really good album, and trying to balance out and qualify those considerations, which I'm not completely at ease with, but I'm comfortable enough saying how good I think the record is on the balance. I'm going to completely fudge the titles here, but the first track in it,
I've got them in English.
Frava de sted til vandes med, from Ford to Sorrow's Smith, whatever that means. This is an album that really brings to mind some of my favourite bits of Converge, and that kind of rockier approach to extreme hardcore in Converge's sense, but extreme black metal in this sense. It's not the most extreme black metal album, but it reins it in quite a bit, and I think there's a really lovely balance. This is the first track, and it's there's a riff around about the minute 50 mark that is just huge, and it's the first point
I've got that as well.
that really summons Converge to me. It kicks off, the track starts with blast beats and straightens out into hardcore fairly early. It's actually got a 3/3 signature. It's got a brilliant bass line, really melodic black metal with like hints of extreme hardcore. The ending in this track is great. It's got a mellotron and a bit of strings, and it's just really huge and quite emotive. The second track, Orkan, which translates as hurricane, is a bit more traditionally black metal at the start. It kind of breaks down into a melodic middle section that's a bit more typically hardcore with double kick. This is the track that caused the controversy, as I say, with the anti-Islamic lyrics, but there were an equal, if not greater, amount of anti-Christian lyrics in it. And it ends with a really odd, but I'd say kind of highly effective riff. I can't really describe it, but it's definitely not something I expected to get in the black metal genre. I think that's something this album does really well, is bring.
It's quite crusty, that riff.
Yeah, it is. It incorporates a lot of quite crusty and extreme hardcore influences, I think.
Yeah, I think track 3, Norrbundet
is a fucking monster of a song.
And it's really sort of crusty. It's got that punky feel to it. It's kind of what I want Satyricon to sound like, or kvlt if they went blast beatier.
It's weird. Look, when I was talking about this to Luigi, my black metal flatmate, he said, this reminds me a little bit of Satyricon, but again, I agree with you. Satyricon don't go far enough in that direction for me.
Yeah, like Satyricon when they came out in the late 2000s with Volcano and the other one that came after that, they like stripped a lot back and they were going for the riff and the 1-2 beat and stuff like that, and it was interesting, but there just wasn't enough complexity to it.
Yeah,
and this strips a lot back but maintains a really interesting.
It's a weird timing, and I think that gives it an edge. It reminds me again of stuff on Jane Doe, bits of Homewrecker, bits of Broken Vow, that kind of like chopping it down into something that you get your teeth into for a little while. Before it spreads back out into a more typically black metal chord structure, it goes between those more complex chords and then these tighter kind of drop detune things. This was like a promo single, and it's a pretty cool video as well. Some really huge riffery kind of later on in it as well, and there's a bit of a gallop that comes in after the halfway point. Nordbund is a really good way to approach this album. If you don't feel like listening to the whole thing, just jump in at that. It's their most high profile thing. It'll be the first thing that comes up if you look them up, I think.
It's a really good year for just composition, I think. Better than a lot of other black metal musicians, I'd say.
I just think there's something about this point in their career where they really matured, or he really matured, maybe with the input of the other musicians. And I like the fact that it's a live project as well, because this album sounds like a live band in terms of the structures of the songs. A lot of black metal sounds very conceptual and very much about the production and the atmosphere. This sounds a bit like the Death Crush stuff by Mayhem, a bit like some of the other bands that we've mentioned along the way, like maybe like Dark Throne, like more played. They sound like a band that plays, and they've got bits in the songs that are designed to work live, and I think this has bits that must really...
Everything sounds DI'd though. Everything sounds DI'd.
But again, there's a lot about the production in this. It's actually, I think he's listened to some of the kind of God City recording stuff. I think there's elements of that, like the DI mixed with the amp. It gives it a bit of, I don't really know how to put it into words. It's just that there's a quality to that I really like. There's a clarity and as well as a sort of slightly disturbing edge. And like there's an EQ quality that comes across with DI things that you just can't really get in a lot of other cases. The fourth track, Du Ville Westland, the Wild Wild West, is straight up nasty start. One of the best riffs on the album pretty early on in this. I think they really made a great decision with the guitar and bass tones in this track. There's almost a noise rock bass guitar tone in this. Black metal is not famous for its bass coming through. Sometimes you don't even have it. This track, the bass guitar is tremendous. They have different guest guitarists in this for like what they call solo 1 and solo 2. The first solo is almost like stonerish in its bluesiness. It's quite an odd inclusion, but it works well in the context. Demonaz does the guest vocals in this and does them well because they just freak the fuck out completely, and there's a really huge riff towards the middle of this song as well.
I thought it was less black metal and more traditional metal in this song.
Yeah,
in terms of structure.
I would say so. Yeah, I think the stoner bit and the fact that there's solos in it, but it is pretty straight, and maybe that's what I mean by just straight. It's just kind of down the line. There's more of just a direct metal edge to it. Yeah. Mir, track 5, which is Bog, has a guy called Skag on the vocals. I assume he's from Dundee, where all the best Skag comes from. this is really old school and furious. I felt it's got a really, really agonised feel to it. Skag, whatever he's doing, the vocals are disgusting in this song, like really, really unpleasant.
I thought it was quite power metal-y musically, especially when it gets to the banjo part.
I mean, yeah, you've ruined my big reveal. It's got a fucking hillbilly banjo bit in it, and I'd like literally thought, you know that thing when you're listening to something but you're in a cafe or something and you're like, oh, there's music on in this room that I'm hearing that's interfering with what I'm listening to, and I took my headphones off and the banjo disappeared. I was like, well, that's on this record. I couldn't believe that they'd put a banjo on this album.
Yeah.
As to whether it works, I don't know that it works. It doesn't. It's not terrible. And by the time the end of the song comes along, like you said, it gets totally triumphant and power metal-y, and the banjo fits in terms of melody. I just think you can't get it out of your head. You can't get past the fact that it's a fucking banjo. You just are like, you're never able to fully immerse yourself in the song again because you're like, this song's got a banjo in it. What were they doing? I didn't think drugs were a big part of this scene, but there you go. I don't know. The sixth track, Helvetis Macht. Helvet, obviously being Euronymous' record store named after hell, but Helvetis Macht is power from hell, which is a good name for your band, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
Has some really big balls early on. There's a kind of quite stonery riff. About 3 minute mark, it develops some kind of electronics in it and gets a kind of, it's got an old school black metal heart later on in the song, but with this electronica kind of woven through. And then about 2 minutes after that, there is just this big beasting victory riff that goes into this big outro that kind of slowly fades away. That riff is class. I was humming that riff to myself multiple times after listening to this record.
It's good separation of parts on this song again. He's really good at that. He's really good at separating each song into sections which stand on their own.
It's very lean. It's only a 7-track album. You know, I mean, the 7th track, De vil alltid klaga och gita. They will always complain and moan, I believe is how that translates. Really metal. A great bit of blast beat in it as well. Fucking killer bit of blast beat in this song. And then this massive sad outro where production wise, I mean, this is a self-produced album. The kick drum is so loud that it creates like a tremolo effect on the guitar because the compressor's kicking in so much. It's cool. I assume he meant it because it's effective, albeit unconventional. I think it's a great record. I do have caveats given his reputation. Having read his justifications for that, I don't think they entirely wash, but it's a very good album. And I think we've had to put a lot of our moralising to the side to even come up with any suggestions for this. So
yeah, definitely.
Well,
I stand by it.
Yeah, interestingly. But it's interesting that we've both gone for like, you know, true original black metal. There's a lot of like progressive modern black metal now that is so far removed from Norway and everything that it's definitely, you know, the politics aren't an issue.
Squeaky clean. Yeah.
So that's fine. Speaking of which, Mark.
Well, I've listened to quite a lot of stuff. There was a few records which I did think it was good. I was actually thinking about doing Battles in the North by Immortal.
Is that? Well, I mean, it is unsung in the big scheme of things, I suppose. But on the
probably.
Yeah, and you know, there was the Dawn Raid records, the Unlawful Assembly, which was really good. It only came out 2 years ago though. There was a couple of records in contention that I was going to go for, but ultimately the reason I went for Sunbather by Death Heaven is because this came out in 2013, right? And that was when I really started to get into like heavy music, and I just started getting Converge at the same time. And that record, like the Converge record I really get into, is Act Fall. So that record and this record kind of led me more towards stuff like Trap Them and All Pigs Must Die, and you know, a lot more crusty stuff. And that's when I went to go back and explore more black metal, like Carpathian Forest and all that, which is also a really good record, which I might have picked. Somehow I thought that that record was less black metal than this, if that makes sense.
The Carpathian Forest one kind of rocks. I mean,
it's really good. It's a fucking great record. Yeah,
but I think tonally the Carpathian Forest one's much closer to black metal.
Yeah,
instrumentally, in terms of playing style, this one's closer. But this is way too positive. Yeah,
well, this is what I was going to say. So this is the second Death Heaven record. Their kind of style of black metal, I guess, it's got a lot to, it's indebted quite a lot to shoegaze, so hence black gaze. It's also in a major key, which really gets the goat of a lot of fucking a lot of black metal purists.
Yeah, to me,
it's in a major key.
To me, this is just a speed picked version of Explosions in the Sky. It does my head in.
I fucking love this album, and I think it's, like I said, I listened to it right after the Attack record earlier on, and they're not a million miles apart, like really, like sonically, really not that far away.
Tonally, they are.
They sound like the same kind of music though getting played. It's like when you get metal bands who play in major keys and metal bands that don't. Do you know what I mean? They're still considered metal bands at the end of the day.
But the major key ones are rubbish.
It's not always true.
I get that it's taken some element of black metal, but I think it. I saw these guys live. I saw them on this tour, and everything about the performance just reeked of inauthenticity. The mannerisms on stage, the dress, the production of it, it was just so hollow, and I just got nothing out of it whatsoever. I get it's musically played and it's brilliantly recorded, and there are good moments on it, really good moments on it, but the reason that I like super triumphant moments on Taka or on anything really is that they are balanced, you know, sweet and sour, you know, like you have that, and this just doesn't do that. It's like, this is just fucking easy listening black metal.
Did you listen to New Bermuda, the one after this?
Is this the one that's like fucking shoegaze Oasis?
No, it's actually a lot more thrashy in places, like it's a lot darker.
The most recent stuff I've heard by these guys.
Yeah, that's Ordinary Human. What's that?
Corrupt Ordinary Human.
Right. Sorry, no, that's
Ordinary Human Corruption. I think
I've heard that one, and I was just totally bemused by that.
That's going in a different direction entirely. But it's really weird that
New
comes
Bermuda
after.
Is really crunchy, really fucking dark and heavy.
Very, very. It's like it is.
And you could tell that they were a band that were like, oh, let's just prove ourselves that we are a properly good heavy band, because we've got a lot of people that aren't.
So the criticism stung.
Possibly, but no, I think they were just like,
somebody that was critically acclaimed by Metal Press and Pitchfork.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure they were happy about that, and it definitely helped with the income. But in terms of like credibility, I don't know that it massively helped.
Well, it's on Deathwish. I think if you want credibility and a kind of you're moving in kind of hardcore-ish scenes, I mean, you've already got it.
The entire like they released Rose to Judah before, which was like fairly credible. You know, they didn't get any stick really off that. They came out and they deliberately released this album called Sunbather. The first track was called Dream House. The album is pink. You know,
the album looks like one of your jumpers.
Exactly. It's so anti-black metal in all ways.
I like that part of it though. But
so they're not going to be stung by criticism about not being black metal, because the entire point of the record was like a big fuck you to true cult black metal.
Yeah, no, I get that. I just think, yeah, that's all good on paper, but then in terms of actual writing, it actually fell short because it lacked the diversity of mood. It lacked any depth.
Completely disagree with you.
I think I admire their flying in the face of convention with the cover. I love the cover of Sunbather. It's really, it makes you want to listen to it when you see it. You're like, that's fucking great. I get that. I love the mystique around this really heavy band calling their songs these deceptively mild things. What would have been even more subversive then is to write something that had a greater array of mood.
I think it's got a vast array of mood. It's not all euphoric, it's not all happy.
But even when it's not euphoric, it's just unremarkable.
It's not. And I saw them live on this tour as well, and I thought they were fucking amazing.
So anyway, before we get into the record, a bit of background on the band. It's ostensibly just Josh Clark and Kerry McCall, who are the two guys who kind of wrote the first record and this record. They actually bonded over a love of bands like Burzum and Inner Mortal. So like they came at this music, or they came at Death Heaven from like true black metal stock. And that was the whole point of the project with Rose to Judah at the start. And the split EP you brought them up before, Dave, Boston Age. So they've kind of got that they've always had that kind of feel, but then obviously there is a total subversion with this record, and I wasn't really expecting to hear what I heard when I first heard it. I was expecting to hear a proper black metal record, because that's what I'd read in some press, and it totally was not. I was like, this is definitely not black metal. This is definitely like shoegazy black metal, which is what I loved about it the most. As you said, Dave, it starts off with Dream House. Which is, it's like big atmospheric, black metal, but
it's just got
that major
opening
key.
chord. Is one that you just want to bathe in. No, like literally, it's like sunbathing. It's just like a fucking
I'd like
really lovely noise.
I'd like us to use a different phrase than black metal when we talk about this album, though. It just doesn't seem...
Well, it's not going to fucking happen, so shut up.
We call it post black metal, or like rainbow metal.
I don't care when he says fuck y'all. The drummer on this record is better than most black metal drummers.
The drums on this record are fucking amazing.
Unbelievable. There's a massive, really good hardcore bit at 2 minutes 30 in Dreamhouse, which...
Yeah. Like that sort of breakdown. That's like when you realise, this band are doing something interesting.
They're really good at building up and releasing as well. They do that a lot throughout the record, both in the heavy bits and in the lighter bits. They release at 4 minute mark, which is really, really good, and it builds back up again quite slowly towards the end of the song. It's just such a smashing tune. It's a great way to open a record which looks like that. The cover looks like that, and it's called Dream House. You're like, fuck, this is... It's like black metal. It's not having a nightmare. Like having a nice dream.
Yeah.
Rainbow metal.
But it's
kind of colour rainbow metal.
It's got the brutal sort of venom and like that black metal has.
What?
A lot of the passages of guitars, especially in the hardcore bits, are fucking properly ferocious, man. Just because it's in a major key does not mean it can't be ferocious.
Yeah, it does.
No, it doesn't.
It's good. Oh god.
Carry on, Mark.
It can still be heavy and being a major key and be vicious.
You can be loud and be in a major key.
I don't agree with that. And then it goes on to an interlude, basically irresistible. And that's why, like I said before, that's why I really like this record, because it's really good at playing with dynamics. It's really good at bringing in that, the big triumphant moments, and then just letting things go and still keeping the melodies really interesting, like guitar wise. There's not a lot of vocals on this record, you know what I mean, which I find quite fascinating, given the vocalist is one of the key members of the band. There's not a lot of vocals on this album at all, and Irresistible kind of it kind of feels we're being enveloped by it almost, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then obviously it gives way to Sunbather, which is just got an immense opening riff.
That's a decent track.
It's a really good song. Again, it's another song that sort of builds up and it starts to break down again at like 1 minute 40. then it goes down a key at 4 minutes 50. And then there's a bit after that, which is like pure blast beat, proper intense black metal, and it when it shifts kind of like a minor key almost. Well, but it's not really a minor key, but it goes down, kind of moves out of major anyway. It's kind of a bit more diminished, I guess, and then you've got that mellow part afterwards, which is kind of slowly repeating, and then just the end is like a giant shoegazy wash of guitars, and this song takes you on a journey. I mean, Dreamhouse is a great song, but this song has got a lot more dynamics. It's got a lot more going on in it, I think.
I think it's like an interesting thing that somebody said when this album just first came out is that, like, no single part of this album is repeated.
Yeah.
Like, there's no verses, there's no choruses, there's no thematic riffs that they go back to. It's like an hour long, and it's an hour long of ideas and things following things and following things, and it's a story, and it's really interesting.
Yeah.
And
there was I can't remember the name of the era, but there was an era in the kind of second wave of black metal where that became quite in vogue, where people, like, no phrases were repeated. Like, it was constantly shifting. There was a couple of bands in particular, and I'm sorry, the names escape me. So I mean, I'm sure these guys are aware of those bands. I get it, that is interesting, absolutely, but still somebody there.
It's still a great record.
And then you have Please Believe, which has got a vocal. Well, the vocals on that are by Stefan Pott.
Please remember,
of Alcest. I was reading a passage from Kundera's The Unbearable Likeness of Being.
That totally fits this
Alcest, a band
you described as, what was it, Atlantic black metal?
Oh no, I didn't. I saw them in Oran Moore, and like, I remember hearing them on MySpace back in the day and found some of their atmospheric black metal really interesting.
It started off like that,
yeah. And then I went to see them about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, and it was so polished, and it was not heavy at all.
Their first EPs are great black metal record.
Rotten. It was like, it was really bad. It was so boring.
Was that,
and like, it was full of heavy metal guys, like full of black metal fans, and I was like, why did any of you like this?
Was that before or after this album?
The first, it was before this, it was maybe like 2011.
Yeah, the first EP I think was 2011, and it was a really good atmospheric black metal record. And they have went into they kind of went in the same direction as Death Heaven, almost, but they're a bit more melodic, a lot more melodic vocals as well.
Yeah, see, I do wonder how many bands have been influenced to sort of go in this direction because they saw the commercial and, or at least industry warmth that Death Heaven and to some extent Liturgy met with, and they're like, oh, fancy a bit of that.
Yeah, I guess we'll never really know. I still think we're doing Alcest record in this podcast. So. And then we've got Vertigo, which really does feel like Vertigo, the way it kind of shifts and kind of creeps, starts really slow and quite creeping. Lovely Ebo guitar sound in the background, which I loved. And then it's a pretty melancholy, it's probably the most melancholy track on the record, even though Sunbather's got that shift in about 4 minutes where it kind of goes down a little bit. This is actually like quite sad, this song. And it's only some guitar solo on as well.
Yeah,
it's got that really mad metal.
Considering they've got a lot more guitar solos on New Bermuda.
Yeah, it's a lot more metal, that record, for sure.
Does it make you want to die?
Yeah,
it's not black metal. It makes you want to die. It's not true cult.
But I mean, Vertigo's got a lot more.
It's a melancholy record. It's an exceptionally melancholy record.
It makes me feel melancholy, but not for the reasons they intended.
I mean, this song's got a proper. This song's got is like a proper journey. So many riffs, so much sadness, so much black metal on it as well. There's a lot of black metal vibe on it. It's got the most black metal vibe in the song than any other song, just because there's so many different parts to the song.
I really want that little sample of you saying "so many riffs, so much sadness" just as my message tone anytime you contact me.
So many riffs, so much sadness.
So many riffs, so much sadness. And then it's got a lot of windows. Which is always freaks me out, man. It's got the really creepy guitar part. Mm-hmm. So that sample is actually Kenny McCoy like doing a drug deal because I had an opioid addiction at the time. And, like, that is actually like real.
So edgy.
It's fucking weird, man. Why would you even put that on there?
How long is this album anyway?
1 hour exactly.
Woofed. It fucking feels like it too.
Yeah, like a nice 1 hour bath.
The water's cold by the end of it. There's no bubbles. You're fucking all wrinkled up.
Do you not put extra hot water in your bath?
You're like, I don't want to be in here, but I don't want to get out of here.
And this song's also got the bit with the Christian preacher on it, which, and this is a quote from the singer, Josh Clark. Thematically, it's supposed to be about this guy talking about the evils of all hell intermixed with one's own personal hell and the actual realities of addiction and self-worth, not the fire and brimstone. So yeah. Isn't
there some problematic about this band as well?
Yeah, so they had a guitar player playing live with them at the time before this record came out. What's his name? Nick something. And he made some transphobic comments about the band Gloss, who subsequently split up. And then Kenny McCoy is problematic as well, Dave, I believe.
That band Gloss were terrible.
I was not a fan.
Yeah,
fucking terrible.
I'm pretty sure Kerry McCoy said some slightly homophobic things on Twitter about 10 years ago. He didn't murder anybody.
What a modern fucking. He said something slightly homophobic on Twitter 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
I can't remember what the details are.
After the first episode we just recorded.
Exactly. He did not brutally murder anybody in a park. So
did he make jewellery out of the skull parts of his bandmate?
Yeah, no. Exactly.
But it's kind of weird. It's a bit of a digression, but it's weird how like the lines have shifted, isn't it? Like completely. It's like, oh yeah, so they had like one homophobic member, which means you can never listen to them ever again. Whilst we sit and listen to fucking Thorns.
Yeah, like as a promoter dealing with bands that are coming over and cancelling tours, and you actually work out and you're like, I don't know why you've cancelled your tour. Apparently you're problematic, but I literally have no idea what is going on. You've released a statement that's like 10 paragraphs long and I have no idea what you've done. And then we're talking about bands that have like literally murdered people and given them a pass. But
yeah. There's even a swastika in this record.
There isn't a swastika.
There's no fucking fascism.
There must be one hidden somewhere. Maybe there's a pink swastika mixed in the front.
Maybe, we'll never know.
If you unfocus your eyes, it's like, what are those fucking magic eye picture?
I mean, it is a square, isn't it? I don't know.
And then it ends with the pecan tree, which is properly cathartic. Really,
I fucking love that track.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The vocals don't come in really again until the 8-minute mark, which is madness. The song is just like, it is like a bath. It's like a proper post-rock feel. It's just so lovely and lifting. It's a really good way to end the record. It feels like getting a load off, which actually chimes quite well with the whole, I guess, the theme of Windows about the whole hell thing. Overcome your demons, I guess, is the end.
I love the fact that Chris has spent 4 fucking hours talking about how black metal can't be extracted from its original source or whatever, but like this, how can we be meta in criticizing it? And then finally this album comes across and it is critical and it uses black metal tropes but in a interesting meta way, and it's the one that Chris fucking hates.
Yeah, I just love the way he's also thrown his choice completely out the pram now that we've talked about nothing that he's getting interested in. He just doesn't give a fuck anymore.
No, you know what it is? It's like, I recognise how problematic milk and dairy is, right? But oat milk is, it's the less problematic derivation of it, but it's shite. And
fuck off. Oat milk is better than milk.
And I think
an oat milk flat white is better than flat white.
It alleviates my conscience somewhat.
And there speaks a true Dev Heaven fan there. A pro oat milk flat white.
Exactly.
I did just say that. But that's just you finding an excuse to not give up dairy because you're fucking lazy. Oat milk's actually really good. Anyway, I won't get on a pro-veganism chat because that's very un-black metal of me.
Oh my god,
most black
I just want to say, I fucking love Sunbather. For some reason, this album thematically and aesthetically reminds me of White Pony. I think they're like two partner albums in that they're very.
That does not sit well in this side of the room.
Yeah, I can tell. So that's why I'm saying
this is to me like the album.
We fucking know, right? Just go. Basically, what we need to do is just
it's
go.
a record that I go back to a lot. So fucking
whatever
good.
the Explosions in the Sky album was after the Earth is a Cold Dead Place, whatever it is.
Yeah,
whatever
it's
the
so
one
much better than that. It takes so much more from so many more places than Explosions in the Sky do.
I mean,
it's
I think
really interesting. Really,
I think it's okay. I think it's better than Liturgy, but I think it's really overstated how good
okay.
Let's be honest, Mark is going to win the vote because people are not going to listen this far. People are going to be like, "Oh, like Sunbather," and they're going to vote for it. So it doesn't matter what we
that's fine. I'm happy with Sunbather being in the discography. It's great and it's the least problematic of them all. If I'm going to vote for Thorns, I think it's a better album than your album. And in terms of your album, Mark, was Metacritic #1 record for 2013.
Not underrated.
In no way is it unsung. Thorns is legit black metal, somehow also underrated and underseen. Obviously problematic, blah blah blah, but it's really fucking good black metal record. Chris, yours is good. Solid 4 out of 5 black metal record. It's nothing special.
Oh fucking ram it. Mine is fucking Spellman winner or nominee, whatever.
Cool. Well,
great.
Black like Sunbather's won it. It's the whole thing is a farce.
Nah, I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think if people have gotten this far, which remains to be seen, frankly, at this point, given how fucking long both these episodes have been, but I would urge you to listen to all 3 of these records because I enjoyed both of them. I enjoyed mine obviously as well, but I enjoyed both your records. I enjoyed listening to them. I will go back and listen to them again.
Yeah.
If I was going to be voting, I would have a really hard time voting between the 3 of them.
Yeah, I think it's 3 interesting records.
Yeah, that's just me.
I think
got a
it's
lot of fucking work into this episode, and it was a huge subject, so I don't mind it being a wee bit up here. We did our best.
We did it, guys. We fucking did it.
Yeah.
And
I do feel physically and mentally exhausted though.
We've actually been recording for 4.5 hours. So thanks, guys.
Go and vote on our Facebook page.
Can we have next week off?
Yeah.
Next week we're going to do something very different. We are going to do Atrocity Exhibition by Danny Brown. Mark and I are both very excited about that.
Well,
Chris is very confused by that.
No, but as long as it gets the kind of non-white contingent back on side, because we've done our damnedest to alienate everybody except straight white males.
Yeah. Yep. But it's been interesting.
Thanks for your patience, folks. Please do listen to some of the stuff we said, even if you despise it on an ethical basis.
Yeah.
Because Sunbather is definitely morally acceptable, but you should never reward mediocrity.
There's nothing medium about it.
You're right.
Anyway, I'm going to go
Cheers,
home
guys.
and have a nice bath.